Hello, Dream Team.
Welcome to another episode of The Good, the Bad. What?
No. I'm in charge. It's not your day. You've had enough time on TV being the big I am.
You lost rock, paper, scissors.
Mate, we absolutely didn't. Stop pulling your raw connections out here.
Well, have we not proved on the Domino video that everyone knows who is the true leader?
No. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching The Good, the Bad and the Rugby, or listening. I was going to say hello, Dream Team, but Tinds ruined it. Penaud's not here this week, sadly. If you wanted to listen to Lock-In to find out why he's not here, we can explain it. Can't really say it on the main show for legal reasons. He rarely leaves us to our own devices, but somehow this has escaped and gone through the net, so we are now in charge. But we couldn't do it without...
Well, no, let's be honest. It's going to be a bit less noisy, hopefully a bit more fun.
Oh, yeah. Much more interesting, less noisy, less boring, less about, Bath back in the day and the rules and regulations. Just
and who sponsors what league around the world.
Yeah, bore off, Alex. Actually, we don't really need you back. We have got a man at the moment, though. England's front row hero, a sexy man. Ellis Genge, how are you?
Good, mate, yeah. All good, thank you very much.
I got to find out whether he's talking to me or not.
Yeah, can we just clear something up straight away? It's very kind of you to agree to come on because I know there's been a real friction between you and the man sitting on my left, Mike Tyndall, because Mike didn't pick you in his team of the week when you are part of the fabric of GBR. You are the future of GBR. Mike, do you want to explain what the hell's going on?
I'll explain it in the way that you're only allowed 4 picks from each team, and I always start with 15. So by the time I get down to the front row, I've got to pick the ones that don't cost the most, and obviously Genge is the most expensive.
You only had 3 England players, though.
No, I had super sub of Harry Arundel, who came on and scored and was one of my top scoring players. I did it 2 weeks in a row. I had Anthony Watson on as my super sub as well.
Are you buying this bullshit, Ellis?
Did you have me last week, Mike?
That's a very good question. I think I did have you last week.
No, I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. As I say, I work from the backs forward. I don't.
Sounds like you're scrambling, mate.
Look, if you want me to come on here with stats, you're not scoring. You're not the best scoring prop out there, mate. You got to raise your game.
I was the highest scoring player last week.
No, you were not. I check our stats every week.
68.
Oh my God! I didn't think it was going to go this badly.
Hang on. Oh, okay, they're lying to me on this app.
Oh no. Because do you know what? One of the things when you pick at a scab and then it starts bleeding and then it starts gushing and you need medical assistance.
No,
I feel like
the good thing is we have an open and frank WhatsApp group, but currently at the
Ellis threatened you
at this moment
shit.
on the charting list, 2, 4, 6. Ellis is 6th on the list out of all the props.
Are you buying that, Ellis? You're 6. You're telling me the great Ellis Genge.
But I don't know what points this is on.
Because I got swatted yesterday by Negri. So.
Talk to us about that. How are you feeling? Because
is it true his shoulders are made of titanium?
Yeah, because we saw you after the game patting him on the back. Just tell people who may have not seen the game who are listening what actually happened.
I just tried melting him. He was having a good run of it, so I just thought put a big shot at him. I got absolutely smoked. Tasted my own medicine. I've not been on the receiving end of too many of them, and it hurts.
Did it actually hurt though, or is it just pride hurt?
Both. Yeah, pride was dented more so, but I got up as quick as I could.
You look like you're in a hotel room at the moment. Talk to us what's happened post game.
Family came up, so seen the kids and stuff, and then they went back down today, so I've agreed to come on with you Looney Tunes for a bit.
And you look so happy about it.
Yeah.
I'm actually just a bit knackered, to be honest. I don't usually get too tired the day after a game, but today it's hit me for 6.
Why do you think it is? I mean, because obviously I thought you played very well yesterday, but you're all over the place. Is that just tiredness, or is it particularly difficult?
If I could, I thought the intensity that you brought first half defensively was 2 levels above where it was last week, if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know whether you guys felt it.
You can say whatever you want, Mike.
Yeah, you had a lot of defending to do. They had a lot of ball in that first half, but the yardage, if you could chart the yardage that you drove them back with defence, that must have been a massive positive that you'd walked away with.
Yeah, no, I thought we did really well. I thought we played well the week before as well. I thought Scotland were just absolutely brilliant. What was the difference? I don't know. We hadn't done the review yet. We mauled really well, which is something we want to hang a hat on, I guess. So was really, really over the moon with that, yeah.
You talk about the maul. Some of the headlines. The Guardian went with "Maul or Nothing England." The Daily Express: England have a ball with the Maul of Fame. I mean,
God, they're geniuses, aren't they?
Yeah, you rating that? I mean, is it a proud moment when the Maul goes well? Because obviously, when Eddie came in, he wanted to bring England back to kind of basics. Borthers again is a set piece aficionado. That's important to part of England's game, isn't it? To be able to score, when needed from the Maul.
Yeah, you just said it then. It's a weapon you need to have in your arsenal. It's something that we're working on. Definitely not where we want it to be yet, but as you just said, it's probably a cornerstone of what all good English test packs have had. So something that we're trying to drive.
Well, was it obviously some of the talking points? Was Owen being back at 10 without Marcus? Does that become a thing within the group that people are talking about what's going to be the right setup on that? Obviously, we know both of them are class players. Is it just? Do you feel as a player that you've just got to let Borthers figure it out and then give him a bit of time to do that?
Yeah, I don't think any of us are here to pick the team, as far as I'm aware. So, given Steve obviously coached at a significantly higher level than I have in my Baby Rhino camp, so I think he knows what he's talking about. I think he knows what he wants, and something that I think he's made quite clear to the press is that he picks for the game and for the team that we're playing against. So it's not necessarily a permanent switch. It's just whoever he feels right for the role that week.
Was it good to see Ollie Lawrence go so well at the weekend? He's been through these tough times where I think it was Scotland a couple of years ago where Eddie's pulled him off before half time, and then to see him bounce back and smash it like he did at the weekend.
Yeah, I was buzzing. Did he get brought off before half time? Did he?
I think so.
With Eddie.
In one of those games, with Eddie.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah,
can't really come back from that, but he clearly found a way. I was buzzing for him. He's different character, really. I think he's a confidence player. He needs to do a bit of soul searching, I reckon. In that tenor that he had whilst Eddie was there, he's also not confident enough in himself that he could play Test rugby, I don't think. And then I think Steve just gave him the license to go out and do what he's been doing down at Bath so brilliantly. So yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing for the bloke.
We know how good you are around the group of players. Is that something that you pick up on and then you try and sort of trickle feed into him as well, giving him that confidence?
Yeah, I feel it goes two ways with Ollie. He's handsome, he's powerful, he's brilliant rugby player, so you don't want to pump his tires up too much. Quite fancied himself. He had his do-rag on this week looking like Alonzo Harris from training day. So he's a brilliant kid though. We've got a lot of time for Al. I've known him for a while now, even though he's such a young buck, but obviously seeing what he could do on the weekend, and hopefully he can just keep producing that.
What's the buzz like around the camp at the moment? You've now had 3 weeks of the Borthers regime. How are you boys getting on?
Well, good, mate. I think it's like kicking the teeth into losing your first game, because obviously you almost have to not reevaluate, so to speak, but find what we're going after next. And after losing that first game to Scotland, I had no doubt the boys were going to fire up for the week. But obviously the hard bit then is putting the performance in. So it's brilliant. The boys done really well yesterday. Again, though, we're just building in terms of, and I don't want to use that word, it's a bit of a buzzword now, and we're building. We've got this looking to the future and all that, because I obviously see it in the press when they say we don't care about the future, we care about now. And what I will say is that knowing where we're going in terms of what we want to do and what we want to achieve, I think has brought its own energy in itself. Hard one to explain to people who are on the outside of the circle, but it's a good feeling, Camp.
Talk about being on the outside of the circle. The last time you came on the show, you were your brilliant self, and we talked a bit about, obviously, Eddie and the pressure that he had on him, and that the rumours, some written media had said that there was sort of unrest in the camp, and you, in your own words, you said that was new to me. I'd go away and investigate. Obviously, subsequently, Eddie was fired. Borthers came on. When you went and did your investigations, did you dig up anything, or was it taken out the boys' hands and it is what it is, or did you uncover a load of unrest and Steve's come in and changed all that?
Nah, fucking hell, it sounds like a crime thriller or something.
Yeah, Inspector Genge investigates.
Yeah.
How good would that be?
I can imagine you grabbing a junior player by the wall going, fucking tell me, did you know? None of that.
Spill the beans.
He spilled the beans, like tying one to a chair and like pulling his fingernails out. You fucking yeah.
No, it wasn't quite like that, mate. I stand by what I said. I didn't have an inkling to that sort of stuff, and obviously they made a executive decision at board level. And as you just said, then it wasn't my decision, wasn't any of the players' decision. I think they just went with what they felt they need to do, which has happened. So there was nothing that we could do to stop or. Do you know what I mean? No one there's no rebellion or anything like that. Steve's come in, he's done a brilliant job. I think everyone's really enjoying him.
I thought after the game it was quite nice. Steve was on the field with his kids. Your kids were on the pitch. Obviously, Lawrence had that big hug with his mum. It feels that there's quite a family vibe and really sort of bringing the family into this team. Has that changed from Eddie, or is that just an optic from the weekend?
No, Eddie loved us, seeing our family and spending time with the kids and that. I think Steve, being a bit younger than him, probably having younger kids is potentially more dialed into that. And yeah, how good was it seeing him run about with his boys? I've not really seen that side of Steve, so it was class to.
I went back into being your defensive line. He was getting stepped left, right, and centre by his little lad.
His boys, I think, get coached by Tom Dunn actually, and he said they're half about, mate. So maybe that's it.
And then with Steve's missus, they've probably got an engine for days as well, so they're not going to stop, are they? That sounds dodgy. Yeah. I'm doing everything.
Tinds is just Tinds. By the way, throughout the show has been innuendo.
Steve Borthwick's wife can like run marathons and stuff. Yeah. That's what I meant.
Thanks for qualifying it, Tinds. Yes. Ofcom were ready to seize the day. Ellis, look, you're obviously you're yawning the place down, which I assume is just down to the fact you are tired, not as a pointer. And
no one's ever yawned at you.
Yeah, no one's ever yawned at me. Just talk people, because sometimes Fallow weeks are a little bit of a confusing conundrum. What do you guys do in a week? Like, how much work is done? How much rest is done? How much play is done in a week like this?
I've never been in a Fallow week with Steve in charge, so it's going to be new for me. Typically, as you'd know, mate, it's not the whole squad. It's a smaller squad. It's not a rest week by any means, but it's a week, I guess, to get some good work done in terms of repair and areas that you feel you need to grow in and really sort of fine tune those areas where you wouldn't be able to in a test week. So you're juggling so much stuff. So yeah, it's a good opportunity to grow, I guess, as a squad.
Are there some simple changes from Eddie to Steve that are going to take time, and are you allowed to share any of those with us, or is it just, a slightly different way of playing that you've just got to get used to? Is he trying to keep it simple to make that transition period as easy as possible?
Yeah, I think he's been quite vocal about that, hasn't he? That it's going to be simple. I think Test rugby is quite simple when everyone's on the same page. I think something that we struggled with. Sorry, boys.
Fucking hell, have a coffee.
Is someone keeping any coffee? We've just started a yawn counter, so we're going to see what you get to by the end of this.
Have a coffee and punch yourself in the head, for Christ's sake.
I can't do any more of that. I think with it's just more so everyone being on the same page, and I think that's what we want to sort of chase, is everyone giving 100% for the whole test, which sounds a bit silly to say, and because you're playing for your country, you'd assume everyone's doing it anyway. But where you channel your energy is a very different story. So I think like the kick chase on the weekend was absolutely brilliant. We kept Capuzzo quite quiet. Obviously, he's got gold in his boots, that bloke. So to keep a world beater like that reasonably quiet is some achievement in itself. So yeah, I feel that's probably the main difference, is just where we're channeling our energy.
I'm not sure that you'll comment on this, but do you get a wee bit frustrated when you're in the opposition 22 and you see the ball grubber kicked away? Because I just felt
I love it. I love it.
If it gets an outcome,
pressure plus rugby.
Well, if it gets an outcome,
but that's it though, mate. Because like you say that and then.
But I would prefer to see 15, 20 phases of you keeping ball.
But if you play 15, 20 phases, then you're giving some of these teams, Italy contest 1 in 2 breakdowns, so 50% of the rucks they try to jackal at. So if you're playing 15, 17 phases, if you play 18 phases, you're giving them 9 opportunities to jackal. So there's 9 opportunities you can lose a ball. So it's 6 done and 6 of one and a dozen of the other. You know, you can do either, but let's try to be really good at one of them.
Just looking at this, I mean, obviously, Tinds asked you a little bit about the sort of the Farrell conundrum, and we don't need to talk about the selection policy, but we were doing some study. This was driven by Alex, because I'm not as boring as this, but one of the things we wanted to check out and sort of maybe even talk with you from a forwards perspective was the fact that England's kind of fly half history is quite a unique one, because obviously they start with Owen Farrell, who is perceived as, maybe, I won't put the words into your mouth, but I'm going to say the more sensible, more pragmatic fly half in comparison to Marcus Smith. But actually, if you look at England's selection over the years, we've got Andrew over Barnes, Grayson over King, Wilkinson over Hodgson.
It was the first time that Genge had only just been born on that one, probably.
Really?
Wilkinson over Hodgson. I don't.
No, probably right. It's just for Wilkinson over Hodgson, Flood over Cipriani, Farrell over Smith, except when Ford and Farrell played together as kids. I mean, Tinds, I'll put this onto you straight away. Do you read into that?
No, I don't read into that, because if you went to New Zealand, Carter was always picked. Well, if you go back, Mertens was over Spencer. So it's not necessarily always. It's got a fit for each individual team. You know, Larkham over Gitto. I don't think it really falls into that category all the time. I think, yes, there's obviously flair ones that you want to see play, but it's also got to fit into what is the best thing for the team. And without putting Ellis in a difficult, as he's just already said, he's got no sound selection. He's just got to rock on, and he believes in it.
But I wonder if you ask Ellis in a better way, is that some of the criticism with England, I don't disagree with that. I think actually maybe the game wasn't as exciting, but I thought England were very pragmatic about what they were doing.
You look at Ireland. Ireland always have a pragmatic 10, and look what they're doing.
Could you feel, because the way people outside of the media are talking is that, and written media in particular, are talking that England are kind of being quite sensible, playing within themselves. They would say, having Owen, we know Owen wants to play as well, but the perception is that he's more stayed fly half than anything else. England are trying to play, aren't they? You guys look like you're trying to play. Do you find that frustrating, or is Borthas or the guys are trying to coach you to play? To go out there and actually show some real flair, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got a brilliant coaching group who want us to express ourselves. Steve always says that he wants everyone to express themselves and play the way they play. I mean, Ollie was brilliant yesterday, and I don't think he played with himself. I think Test rugby, as I said, is not the same as Premiership rugby. I think you've got less time, less space, and it's a numbers game, isn't it? I think statistically, you're probably better off playing a possession and territory game at Test level, as opposed to, for example, the way Bristol play in the Premiership. Is a lot more passing the ball, a lot more ball in there. But I don't know why everyone kicks up a fuss about it. Like, if you win games, then no one seems to have an issue with it. But
I think why people
do have an issue with it.
Yeah, no, I just think it's, people assume that if someone can do something for the club, why can't they immediately be doing it for their country? So you look at Ollie Hassel-Collins, who's been tearing up the Premiership when he gets the ball in his hand, and then he doesn't often get the ball. And I think that is where the question marks come with. And then, unfortunately, because, and I've been there, I've lived through it when there was sort of myself, Jamie Noon, Tate, post myself and Will Greenwood about what was all the centre partnerships were always completely wrong. And if it gets to a point where it gets focused on, then it becomes the talk of everything. And I think that's just what we want to make sure that we do. Is obviously it's very hard for you guys at the moment. You are not in a transition period, but you're obviously the same group of players with a few injuries, so you're not always the same group under a new coach. And it's comfortable to say that you're all finding your feet, right? And you're trying your best to play the way to showcase everyone's skill sets, but you've got to also win at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily finding. It's a funny term, and finding your feet, it makes you sound like you've just started something. I guess in essence we have. Like, the team is reasonably new in terms of what we're trying to do, but not for 1 minute should people think that we get coached to play within ourselves and not play what we see, because it's the complete opposite. We get told to told to do all that.
Ellis, do you adapt the way you play? Because obviously, you're not shy in having a ball carry. Obviously, with when you play with Owen, it'll be probably in a certain way with Marcus, because maybe there's that bit more that broken play element. The fact he's going to take on the line in the first game, made 14 carries. I mean, you don't want your 10 making 14 carries. Do you adapt the way you're going to play, knowing that perhaps you might get an offload off Marcus, whereas you might pick some different running lines off Owen, or does it not matter? You're just going to do your thing anyway?
Half and half, I think. Like for me, for example, when I play at the club with Kyle, I've got a very particular sort of comms and lines that I run off syncs, and I'd like to transition that into Test rugby, but again, the holes aren't there, so you have to adapt. There's a lot more space in the Prem, so the lines are a lot easier to run, and they're there more often, as you've seen this year. But then, like yesterday with Ches, Ollie Chesham, when he scored his try, I didn't have to say anything to him because I played with him for a while at Leicester and we were quite tight. I just gave him the eyes, so I didn't even have to say to him, come short, and he knew what I was going to do straight away. So I think, almost going back to what we said earlier about the squad and how it's feeling, is that's where that becomes really important, is that those small bonds that you build off the pitch then transition to on the pitch.
Have you been? He's been impressive to me, Ollie Chesham. Since, have you found that as well? A young man stepping into quite a tough position to play it internationally. Have you been really sort of buoyed by how he's taken to his work?
Well, that's the key thing there, is what you said, is that young, and I get that you can't buy experience. That you need to play games to be experienced and see all these different situations. But for me, like if you're good enough, you're old enough, and I guess most people would be quite hasty about playing a tight head lock who's 20, 21, 22 years old, but he's fantastic. So I think it's probably a lesson, I guess, and you've seen it over the years as well, that like just because someone's young doesn't necessarily mean they can't adapt and do the job. And like he's fronted up. That's a test match lock there who 3 years ago was fresh out of Nottingham, not even in Leicester's academy. So it just shows how much he's come on under Steve.
Were you a bit shocked by the fact that he didn't sort of lay into the guy who was on Farrell, but instead just rolled him over to give Farrell the wrestling advantage and be on top?
I've seen that this morning. The Ches is hard as nails, to be honest. He chucks his weight about really well, and I think you see Faz. Seb's a big lad. He's a big lump, and he done the right thing.
It is interesting because Chesham does strike me. He's almost physical beyond his years, isn't he? Because he's a big unit, but he's not the biggest. But he's got a real physical edge. I've never met him, never spoken to him, but he seems to have that sort of bit of an enforcer vibe about him. Is that right?
You should get him on, mate. He's hilarious, honestly. Like, this is another thing about rugby and these youngsters coming through. Like, they almost get told not to sort of show their personality and that, but he's hilarious. Yeah, no, he is an enforcer, I guess. I don't want him to hear that, but he runs around, hits people, carries hard, and does his job, and he belts mauls as well.
I was going to say, are we going to pick that up in the Netflix doco? How's that been? How's it been having extra crew around? Do you feel like it's highlighting everything in the right way? What's your feelings on it?
I don't know how much I can say, to be honest. There was a few bits we had to iron out in terms of what can be seen and where you let cameras. It's obviously quite new for rugby in a whole. Cameras are always frowned upon in general, but to be letting them behind the scenes during test weeks when you're playing against all these other countries, knowing that they've got other people in their camp filming as well, it's really tough to get around. But yeah, I think they're probably highlighting on or focusing on a few people and zoning on them as opposed to trying to spread themselves thin and document everything.
Have you been one of the first ones to come over here? I'll be
wearing the budgie smugglers around the hotel unnecessarily and shit like that, lunging around.
Like Terrell Owens, he drives everywhere.
I always do this.
Yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm always bench pressing greased up in the fucking living room. Don't judge me.
Did you ever see that?
Yeah, that was one of our main concerns, actually, that people were going to start acting real weird. But it's been all right so far.
Mate, if it had been now,
it'd be absolutely brutal.
I'll be portable decks. I'll be doing lectures. Funny you should catch me. I was actually just doing some charity work over here with some orphans. We're not orphans. You are now, you fuckers.
Walking down to the pitch with a boombox on his shoulders.
Yeah. I'm just doing a life drawing with me like naked in the room. A load of people paid to draw. What
at dinner?
What? I know. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but just reading between the lines, has there been that occasion where these guys have come in, set up, and you're like, whoa, hold on a minute, you're not filming this? Is that the kind of teething problems, or do you have to let them in come what may?
No, that's not put me on the spot. Yeah, there has been things that we've said, look, you just can't film these bits for reasons that it's no one's business, I guess.
Yeah, did they kick off? Did they kick off?
Discreet. No, they've been good. The guys are brilliant. Really, really nice guys. Really enjoying having around Harry and James. Yeah, no, they've made it really seamless, to be honest. I think they're learning a bit as well. Capturing footage that they're not massive rugby people, so they're capturing footage that we probably didn't have any idea of what's going on, and probably a bit of a learning curve for them too.
If you look from outside, do you think this is something that needed to? Because I think this ultimately could be brilliant because of being in that environment, knowing how hard rugby players work, knowing how much they sacrifice. I think it's going to be a fantastic and a real eye-opener for the average everyday fan who doesn't understand rugby. Do you feel that, or do you just still see it as a little bit of an inconvenience because you have to be on your toes if they're in the room, or are we getting to see truly what's happening in meetings and in training sessions?
Yeah, I guess you have to wait and see. I haven't seen the edits or anything like that. I do think that they would have been better off just focusing on one team. And what is it? The all or nothings that do the one team. Yeah, they're doing a whole tournament. Obviously, I haven't seen that done before. They said like it was going to be similar to the F1 setup in terms of covering all the drivers, but this time it's teams. I prefer watching, and this is just as a viewer, the ones that focus on one team and follow them around. And I feel you probably get a bit of better footage and more personal then. But what the fuck do I know? I'm not a director, am I?
I was going to make a joke there, but just to tie it all back into everything we've been talking about. We talked about obviously about England's sort of pragmatic nature, right? And we talk about your view of Bristol under a former Pacific Island coach and kind of a different way of doing things, a looser way of doing things. Do you think as well the adoption of the Netflix, that all of that goes into, we like playing things a little bit safe. We're not, this. I'm talking about kind of the English in general. We're not massive people to kind of be to show off and have a lot of flair and kind of character, whereas other countries or other sports are a bit more eager to adopt it. Or is that just nonsense? Because sometimes even we talked about the reference to fly halves and some of the stuff that Tinds has dispelled. You look at some of the other countries and the way that they're coached and the way that they're encouraged and the way they do some of the media and other sports. It seems to accept flair and character, whereas there's a little bit of trepidation with England, I think.
English people is a
well, I think it's a general. I think because it's interesting for you because you've been, you've played at a couple of clubs now. You've played under a couple of different systems. One, as you said, Bristol is rightly probably looser and more passes. England has been how it is. Yes, there's less time at international rugby. You've then got a Netflix documentary that, as a sport, we haven't been that eager to adopt. I know we're doing it, but we haven't been that keen. I just wonder from your perspective as a youngish player, having played under different guises, is there that little bit of resistance because we're not quite keen on the to show off and have a bit of flair, or is that just bullshit?
I don't know. You got me thinking now. To be honest with you, man, I haven't sat down and delved into that too much. I will have a think about it and get back to you in due course. But just off the top of my head, probably a few reservations. Is when I was growing up through the academies and stuff, it was always be seen, not heard, that sort of stuff, and I guess it trickles through. I think anyone would be naive to deny that that's the case. It's definitely getting better, but mate, we're new to that sort of stuff in general. Like the all or nothings and that are reasonably new as well, and all these Netflix promotions. And then look how much rugby's struggling financially, and you think about the money that gets pumped into these sports, that's what they're going to get at. The people who are filming it, that's what they're going to get back. For rugby, I guess the financial incentives aren't massive, so potentially why they're last to pick up a documentary.
No, but also...
I was going to say, don't you feel that, you've talked about Ollie Chesham as a character. We know what someone like Hask was like behind the scenes. We know everyone in rugby knows a lot more about you. This is the chance to be able to showcase everyone. I know what you're saying, and in some ways I agree with you, the all-in the all or nothing ones where it's one team. But having watched the F1, having watched Breakpoint, which obviously isn't one team, it's numerous individuals through tennis. It hopefully will give you a broad spectrum of everyone across the game, and if they do a good job on it, I think it could be great. But I think it's just as important though that they get everyone's character out of there, and that means the characters in your team, the characters in every team, because that is that they are the special people that play rugby, and I do still believe it's a special individual that plays rugby. So hopefully they manage to get all that.
Well, how long have you got? How long are the episodes? You know what I mean? How long have they got?
Well,
to film
I would have thought the RFU would have given
you
you a brief on sort of what the base, but I suppose that could be done
reason, but it wasn't like how long is every episode going to be? How long have I got to tell people about myself? It was more so what are they going to be filming? Who's going to be filming it? Where's it going to go? Can we edit it? Stuff like that. And what I'm trying to say is, Tinds, it wasn't a question of us being quizzed. It was more so like you as a viewer who thinks this is a brilliant idea. What do you want to see? Do you want episodes an hour long on Ollie Chesham, or do you want I like watching, for example, the Last Dance, although it focused in on because there's only 5 players on the team really in basketball. I enjoyed watching the team training and seeing them fire up at each other and all that sort of stuff, and then the matches and then seeing the debrief, whereas other people like different things. So
the reason I asked Ellis was because obviously I was a big fan of the Hard Knocks series. I remember one of the first ones, Terrell Owens, just having his own merch line, just going complete.
And didn't walk.
Yeah.
He refused to walk to get his car and drive 100 yards.
And he had a character. Now, one of the best things about you and yourself is you have a character. You're unashamedly yourself. Chloe said to me today, she goes, I love seeing Ellis post-match in his England kit. I mean, she didn't stop there. That was the first part of it. She got a bit hot and bothered. But then she said the reason she loves you in your England kit is you're unashamedly yourself. You're so honest and you're so refreshing and so different. And that is the reason why people love you and the way you play. You play with flair, you play with aggression, you wear your heart on the sleeve. Jack Willis, the same, who I thought was brilliant on the weekend, coming, there. And when you play for Bristol, I know part of the reason was to go home and be close to your family, but Bristol play in a certain way that suits a man like yourself. We've seen some of your highlights already this season. I just wondered from a sort of perspective whether, because I personally feel that England, as a nation, especially with rugby, we prefer to be a bit more reserved. We don't necessarily embrace those characters. We like to have them behind closed doors, but we're not that keen to sort of put forward that with that flair. And we would rather select players who are sensible, who are seen as sensible. Whereas you look at Scotland, Finn Russell, he's carving up. Would he be selected for England, or would he be seen as too loose? You looked at looked at the Red Roses, Simon Middleton, he played a pretty similar game plan in all the games he played, whereas Wayne Smith coached the All Blacks to play with flair, built around Kendra Coxedge, the way that she wanted to play, and that kind of flair. And you see different countries doing it, and I just wonder, because you're in both camps and you are very much a character, that do you see the game needs to embrace those and pull it in the right direction, or do you think it's just going to stay the same?
Do I think the game needs to embrace those? I think we can do a better job of showing what people's personalities are like. Yeah, absolutely. But mate, it's horrible, really, because at the end of the day, you're speaking about sport, and sport is a business now. And at the end of the day, rugby just doesn't have enough financial incentives for people to shut their all and throw their personality out into the world just to be a club clown, that's all you'll end up at the end of the day. And if I'm being honest, that's you have to sort of attain a reasonably respectful, serious personality in rugby for numerous reasons. But look, it goes way beyond our reach in terms of changing that. It's a long process, but I think the Netflix is probably a good start. Just while we're on it as well, in terms of when you said about the selection of those people over the years and England as a culture, we're not safe at all. I don't think we get coached to be safe. I think we do push it to the limit, just in other ways. I think when you're growing up in New Zealand, I think that's probably an unfair assessment, because rugby's their first sport. It's what they live and they breathe. So you're probably coached to be that way, because there's so many people coaching. You get that many different ways of seeing the game. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in England, rugby's probably third or fourth now under cricket, tennis, football. So you don't get people necessarily seeing the game from all these. You get one view on it to a certain degree. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but
you are. No,
what I'm trying to say is that, like, if I from birth was playing rugby, which a few of our boys were, then I'd probably be a significantly better ball handler and have all these mental tricks on my sleeve. But like, I was football till I was 12. Do you know what I mean? So playing in goal, and I'm pants in goal as well. But what I'm trying to say is, it's not everyone's first love over here. So it's a bit harder to compare a country that lives and breathes rugby and their skill sets in comparison to the English.
Well. This is down to Netflix to do it the justice. We hope it does it, and hopefully Ellis will come out flying. Deals everywhere, spiels, everything. Going back to sort of Six Nations, you got Wales up now. This week, do you try and put stuff together that Steve's been trying to work on? Just get more minutes together on the training paddock, working on, as you said, connections and partnerships, and then going into the Wales week, that's when you'll start focusing on them as an opposition, or are you already starting this week?
I honestly don't know. Like, as I said, he might have something up his sleeve that he wants to test out and do it completely differently to what we've experienced in the past. I'd assume that we're probably going to be trying to further grow our relationships on the pitch and off it. Because I think Steve, having stopped playing 9 years ago now, maybe 10, has a really good understanding of how attritional the game is. He's got a really good eye for that, really good feel for it. So I'd say he's probably not going to run us into the ground, but we'll see. We're willing to do whatever it takes.
What's the chances of him putting on a load of strippers and beer on one night out?
Oh, we've been doing that all week.
I thought you might.
No, you know Borfs as well as I do, mate. That's
out of question.
It's not happening.
Look, Alice, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in this Fallow week, and hopefully when you go back to Bristol, you'll keep smashing it like you are with England. When you do get back to normality, will you come and see us in the studio, spend a bit of time? Because we love you on Zoom or Riverside watching you yawn, but we'd love to see you yawn in person if that's possible.
I'm so yawny when I have to sit down and put headphones on and focus. I was like this in school, mate. This is why I didn't get on in school. My attention span is terrible.
I thought you'd done very well though. You kept it together. I mean, it started badly, petered off in the middle, and sort of finished strong. So that's. I
started talking about stuff that I'm actually a bit passionate about. I guess the blood.
I thought you might be about characters. Well, listen, Ellis, thanks very much, mate. Good luck. Enjoy the Fallow week.
Good luck, mate.
Hope the rest of the boys smash it.
Same, mate.
I mean, look, I love Ellis. He's brilliant. Obviously, we talked a little bit around the houses. I think the point was, are England really pragmatic and boring in comparison to other teams, or is it a case we've got flair, we embrace it, but sometimes it doesn't come out?
I don't think it's that. I think it's the question of whether is there a process to get out there? Is there a process that they're first trying to get the nuts and bolts together before they allow that? But then in the meantime, as a frustration for myself, you look at Hassel Collins or someone, or you look at a Henry Slade, or Henry Arundel. He came on and managed to get that score away, and that was the first time he probably got down there. You gave him half a metre and he scores. I just feel that there are opportunities to go out there. You look at other teams that, Penaud gets the ball on the edge all the time, wherever it is on the field, and he can make the decision to kick. Because that the fullback's coming across, coming up, you've got the other winger coming back. It's actually probably a better time to kick. If you have a scrum half chasing down the middle, you can do the French of old and put it back in the middle. I just feel a lot of our kicking options are quite basic. They're not box, or they're smash it long off, or the up and under, really. Yeah. Whereas I think they can move the ball, let someone trust someone like Henry Slade or Freddie Stewart to put their boot on the ball a bit wider. But then if it's on, they can back themselves. Because I say, when Max Malins scored that try that was disallowed, he was on the edge, looked like he was going to kick, and then obviously someone jumped out of line, through the dummy, went through it. I just think give those players those options to make those decisions. I think Ellis made a very good point about kind of where rugby sits in this country, and actually I think it comes down to even how you're coached as a kid to encourage those people. I think you've got a dual thing going on. You want personalities, people to have character, people to sell the game and to play with flair, but equally you want to coach kids not to worry about making mistakes, to play really well. And I would say throughout my career I was probably overcoached to a certain degree. I wasn't encouraged just to play. When I played in France at Stade Francais,
20, 30 balls down in training. That's not ideal, but people were trying things. And when it came to the game, you'd probably tighten up a little bit. I just wonder whether we are stifling things a little bit. And I think that goes on to a little bit of the reticence around Netflix, when actually rugby, I think, desperately needs to show off what it's about. And I think especially with England, if we're in Europe, or even now with I said with Scotland, with Finn Russell, or France in particular, they're always seen as the flair side. Now, they were sometimes too flair and too emotionally all over the place. They've obviously changed that now. I just think it's an interesting thing. And as Ellis said, England aren't coached to play, boringly or pragmatically. But perhaps it comes down to kids and encouraging them to be a bit looser.
Yeah, but I think why now? I think back in the day, a win was a win, and that's all took them what to see. Whereas I think now people are watching games throughout. They do want a little bit of entertainment. So hopefully Porthos is building to a plan. I don't think Leicester played boring rugby when they won the title. Yes, they played pragmatic when needed to be, but then have that expanse when you want it. And I feel we've got to believe that we're working there, but it's not going to come together like that. And then hopefully another week together, then into the Wales. Wales are obviously they've got fighting their own battles at the moment, so it's going to be a key match for both teams, because it really shapes what the Six Nations is going to be off the back of it. It's really bad times for Wales if they win, and for England it carries on an upward curve that people will always buy you more time when there's an upward curve.
Well, there's certainly a lot of jeopardy building into that Wales game, but now it's on to our good friends at Honda. Right, our good friends at Honda want a one-word review of the weekend's rugby. Now, if you had to sum it up in a word, this week we're going to write our words down on a clipboard and do a bit of a show and tell, Tin. So I need you to sum up the action in one word. You've got a pad and a pen.
Well, look, I picked that France were going to win the championship. So my one word is just Ireland with a little number 1 and a hash.
Do you know what? And I genuinely, we have not conferred.
We definitely haven't
conferred in any way, shape, or form. And I obviously my talents lay elsewhere, but I have gone with Ireland with a heart, but it looks like a bottom with an arrow through it. But it's actually a heart with an arrow through it.
No wonder Chloe gets so confused.
Yeah. Hey, accidents happen. Oh, you didn't want the arrow through your bottom, right? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You want a love heart. Accents do happen. Well, Ellis, both of us said Ireland. If we weren't going to go with Ireland, is there another word you would go for?
I think still rugby was the winner. So yes. I'd say rugby. I think there's 2 games on Saturday. England, not so much, but 2 games on Saturday. I don't recall 2 better weekends of Six Nations.
If I had another word, but I couldn't really spell it, so I decided to go with Ireland, was sensational.
There you go.
Yeah, but I think, as I said,
it was too long. Writing's really bad and it wouldn't have fitted on the page.
I mean, Honda we tried to mix things up, but obviously it affected me. If I had a keyboard and a spell check, I'd be coming up with all sorts of complicated words. Well, anyway, very, very exciting.
Let's bring in our guest.
Well, hold on. There's a bit more, actually. Now, if you haven't seen it, we had a brilliant day out with the GSR girls in 2 Honda HRV hybrids. We went head-to-head with them, and they wiped
the floor with
us. We reflected last week on the kicking tee gate, is what we're going to call it. You have to have a gate at the end of it, where they basically cheated and had an official tea when we had a cup manufactured by Alex Payne using sticky back plastic, and the ball kept falling off the whole time. Which we
didn't even move the car one time and it fell off.
Yeah,
but that could have been you placing it on there. You were never one of those guys who held it on the tee, were you?
No, I never did that.
I've seen the state of your fingers.
Yeah, it looks like
someone actually kicked your finger instead of the ball. But
do me a favour, kick my hand off. They should kick my teeth out. It would have been a lot cheaper. How good were the cars to drive? You absolutely loved it. I know you did.
I did love it. They were very comfortable, especially in the front and in the back.
Yeah.
Didn't enjoy your driving when I was holding the bowl of milk. But fortunately, your driving was so bad that the car took the brunt of the damage, and not me, which is the point.
It's very rare that I watch any of the content we make back and laugh, mainly because you and Alex aren't that funny. But in that particular thing with the Honda, obviously the comfort, the reliability, the safety, yes, brilliant. But the fact the seats were so absorbent to a whole litre of milk flying around, I was in hysterics. I was tears in my eyes watching that.
And then watching how careful the girls were. They were there to win. And we were just typically 15-year-olds back in a car.
Do you know what? That's why women
indestructible
on average live longer than men, because of that very reason. They were sensible, read the brief, didn't upset Honda. You and I just came in, ruined everything, lost quite badly, destroyed the interior of a car.
But we laughed.
but how we laughed. And
Yes.
if that isn't a lesson for life.
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, if it wasn't enough having Ellis on today, we've got Irish daytime TV breakthrough sensation.
Some say heartthrob.
Some say heartthrob. Tommy Bowe. Tommy, how are you, sir?
Very few say heartthrob. Good to chat to you guys. How are you?
It's great to see that you're still in your prison cell. Loving the decor behind you, white wall.
Well, do you know what? You've just woken me from a nap. Actually, this sort of time is perfect for me to get the head down. The alarm went at 4:05 this morning, so if I was to turn the camera around, you would see my bed, and you don't want to see that, lads. So,
does it revolve with the mirrored ceiling?
This is the one that I'm staying in with my brother, not the one with my wife.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's very. I mean, that's very interesting. Is that a revelation?
Should we delve deeper?
You share your bed with your brother?
Oh no! Just sorry. When I'm in Dublin, because I actually live in Belfast, so when I'm in Dublin, I stay with my brother in Dublin a lot of the time. So no, it's not that we share.
I completely
we don't
understand.
share a bed together.
That hour and a half drive back to Belfast is too far, isn't it? When you can stay in a night out in Dublin.
Oh, listen, it's a chance to get away from the kids. I mean, listening to Hask there, trying to draw a heart, I can see who does the homeschooling or who's going to be doing it in his house.
Right.
But yeah, listen, it's a bit chaotic at home. And yeah, if you can get a night away, why not?
How many have you got, kids?
2, 5 and 2 they are, a little girl and a boy.
We are spending quite a few of our lockdown experiences explain. We have a different part of the pod that's called the lock-in, and we're introducing Hask to everything that's going to come to him when he's got children, when his children grow older. He's only got Bodie at the moment, but if he has more, I think he's struggling with one. Wait, I've got 3, you've got 2, Alex has got 2.
Yeah, the very best of luck to them.
Listen, Tommy, I mean, there's an amazing transformation from incredible Irish rugby player into daytime TV host. I mean, I think you're the first one I can think of who's done it. I mean, what's that been like?
Well, Tinds, does he not do loose women every now and again? I mean, he's pretty much...
He has done, but...
yeah, they seem to have stopped level. At 2, though. They're not inviting me back again. But yes, I'm glad you were following in my footsteps, Tommy. I think you've done it far more successfully than me.
So you're putting yourself down as a pioneer, right, Tinds?
No, definitely not.
Fine. Well, but you're doing it more consistently than anyone else, I mean.
Yeah. Listen, it's an amazing transition for me. You know what it's like, lads, to retire from rugby and have to find a new way of life and find something else that you get your kicks from. And nothing is going to recreate running out in the Aviva Stadium for Ireland or scoring a try against England in Twickenham. But there's something about live television that really gives me that adrenaline rush and the excitement again, and particularly when this morning I was having to talk about Rihanna performing pregnant or talking about a menopause and stuff that I have absolutely no idea about, but it definitely gets me outside my comfort zone.
But coming off the back of the Brits as well, everyone who was pregnant at the Brits decided to show their bellies, and then Rihanna was clearly showing that she was pregnant. Yeah, how do you talk about that?
And I get my arse out of the car park and everyone loses their mind.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's why I'm sure a few people have seen my 10 siblings moment, which I think Ugo Mani made public again. But I mean, it's 3 hours of live television, and you are talking about the most random and crazy topics every day. So yeah, I probably have a couple of those viral moments nearly on a daily basis, but I think that was the one that just went a bit more global.
I was going to ask about that. Now, we've all had our fair share of meltdowns, myself included.
Hask has had more than the most.
Yeah, more than most. Obviously, had one where it looked like I was drunk or high, unable to speak on Sky. So I know.
I watched that. Love that.
Well, don't laugh too much, because let's talk about your international balls up, shall we? Because that is one of the best. Honestly, I rewatched it today because I wanted to ask you about it, and look, I think what you're doing is amazing, but it is one of the best TV moments I've ever seen. Do you want to explain to our listeners and watchers what happened? Because it's just incredible.
So whenever I retired from rugby, I thought, right, I'm going to use the same skills that I had with rugby, take it into television. So you do your preparation, you know who you're interviewing, you do all your homework so that you're kind of in the best position you can be going into each interview. And then it gets a bit boring after a while. You if you're doing 9 interviews every day, it's an awful lot of work. So I thought maybe I'll just try and wing it for a little while. It's summertime, it's a little bit more relaxed. So I decided to when I played my best rugby, I played a bit more off the cuff, enjoyed myself, just take what comes. And then, so I hadn't really read my notes on the author that was coming up, hadn't really read the auto cue. So in the break, we generally talk to them. They set up their Zooms. We kind of chat, have a bit of a crack, a bit of a laugh. And I hadn't read what was coming up. So my co-anchor, Claire, talked about Seamus O'Reilly and his book and his 10 siblings. And of course, 10 siblings is pretty crazy, isn't it?
But, it's insane, but it's the way he went, 10 siblings who lost their mother. And you're like, I would have done, the thing is, because my mum works the same as I would have done exactly the same thing. Because 10 siblings, even in Ireland, that is a lot of siblings.
It is. But you know what is even more crazy? Because the clip stops then. You'd think that I've kind of had a car crash moment. I didn't even realize I'd cocked up. I kept on going with the interview as if nothing had happened.
Double down. Always double down.
So it was literally that afternoon, I had a text from a good mate of mine, who I hadn't heard from in years, just with these 3 laughing emojis. So I text him back on, oh yeah, what happened in the cookery section today was pretty funny. And then he just goes, no. Have you checked your Twitter yet? And then, of course, I looked at Twitter and it had gone viral.
Have you found your life as a TV presenter, you're much more recognised now? Do you feel like that transition is complete? Do you look back at your career going, I wish you were still playing? Because we're going to obviously come on to Ireland. But are you getting...
Or do you think, I wish I'd retired earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, listen, I don't miss playing. I had 14 great years, loved every minute of it. But I don't know about you guys, but my body's in bits. And I get to enjoy the matches at the weekend. I get to be a spectator. I get to work at some of them and be pitchside and kind of enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the crack, enjoy being a supporter. And then you have the morning show that gives me those sort of kicks that, you have to get with life after. There's very few rugby players, I suppose, apart from you, Per, that are able to kind of put the feet up and take it easy for the rest of their days. But I'm enjoying kind of life after rugby.
Well, I love it. Look, congratulations and everything. But the reason we got you on...
Let's bring it back to rugby,
Let's bring it back to rugby. Why we got you on is to talk about just how good at Ireland. Now, you said you don't miss playing, but tell me you'd want to be in this Ireland team now.
Yeah, listen, they're pretty exceptional. I mean, I was very fortunate to be part of the team that won the Grand Slam back in 2009. I was part of a couple of teams where we had, they said, the golden generation, the likes of the O'Connells, the O'Garas, the O'Driscolls. But boy, there's something special at the minute. And I think what Andy Farrell is doing, what Paul O'Connell is doing as a coach and led by Johnny Sexton. Like last weekend, I was a little bit worried going into that match. We hadn't been tested. France were a team that I always thought that they felt that they should be the number 1 team in the world. But my God, Ireland absolutely blew them away. And it was just the best opening 20 minutes, if not first half of rugby I've seen in a long, long time. It was incredible. And I think where Andy Farrell has taken this team is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I just think where Ireland is so good at the moment is how clinical they are. I mean, even that French team. I mean, the meters made were just by both teams was nearly at 700 or whatever, which is incredible in itself. More than actually the England-Scotland game combined, England-Italy game combined, but. It's also how Ireland still managed to keep, and what I think Farrell's done is, are you impressed with how he's managed to keep the defensive and the organisation and the structure side of it, but then what I always felt that was missing with Smith was allow the backs to get into it, your Hugo Keenans, your James Lowes, allow them to impose themselves, and Gary Ringrose looks a different player as well.
Yeah, he does. Gary Ringrose is playing the best rugby of his life at the minute. I think you're right to say the defence, like even going back to the autumn, we weren't as clinical as we should have been. We beat South Africa, beat Ireland, or beat Australia, but really those matches didn't, they weren't the best from an Irish performance point of view. But I think the opening 2 matches in the Six Nations, the way they've scored some of the tries last weekend, 4 against France, 4 against Wales the weekend before. But to keep them from scoring, France's try by Penaud was an absolute worldie of a score. And it's all about the tempo that they're playing at, lads. I mean, I think it was 46 minutes ball in play time. At international rugby, that's unheard of.
That's
insane.
At least...
So 10 minutes longer than normal.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to play against a French team that is full of big boys like Antonios and the Jalons and these huge guys. You have to run them around the park. And they kept the ball in play. They absolutely ran them ragged. The really interesting thing was that actually how much France didn't kick the ball out of play as much as you normally see. They're normally one of the teams that kick the ball the most. But it's as if they tried to go out there and go toe-to-toe and really play rugby. And listen, it worked in Ireland's favour. But you do have to feel still further down the line, Ireland will play France or New Zealand. It looks most like in the World Cup quarterfinals. So, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but certainly at the minute we are looking pretty damn hot.
You brought up Antonio, and obviously that tackle. Now I think it's just come out now that he has now been cited for that tackle post. Now, we were having a discussion before this, me and Hask, and I'm sort of getting to a point where I get annoyed about this. Is they've spent 5 minutes reviewing it on the pitch. And they've made the call that they've made. So should they then have a citing officer come in and then re-cite it afterwards? What do you think on that? Whether they made the right call. Some people, I think it's 50-50 on whether it's a red or a yellow in people's opinions. But once it's made on the pitch, should it stay on the pitch?
You see, I don't agree. I actually think that the pressure should be completely taken off the referee. Like, if Antonio had got a red card, that was after, say, 20, 30 minutes of what was an unbelievable spectacle of rugby. So all of a sudden, the game becomes a no contest anymore whenever you have 15 against 14 for the rest of the match. Personally, I think it probably was a red card, but I think the fact that he only got a yellow means it still was an unbelievable 80 minutes of rugby. And then leave it up to the citing commissioners to really throw the book at him. I mean, listen, player safety is so important, and we have to address the high tackles. But I don't think we should be ruining games because of it, because of one person's, stupidity for a split second. I mean, personally, I think that the yellow card, I'd love to see something brought in where a yellow card, but he goes on report, so that Antonio gets the yellow card, goes off for 10 minutes, and is not allowed to come back on. You have to bring his sub on for the rest of the game. And then when it goes to the citing commissioners, hammer him. Give 4 weeks is not long enough. If he gets 4 weeks, Rob Herring might not play again for months with his HIA. He might, he had a real opportunity to try and stake a claim to go to the Rugby World Cup. Because he won't play for a couple of weeks, he might lose that opportunity. So I kind of think that we have to stamp it out. We have to really, if people go high, particularly repeat offenders, people who get 2-3 yellow, red cards a season, I think we really need to, give them a big fine or ban them for a long time. But don't ruin the game. Don't ruin the 80 minutes, because the spectators are there to watch 15 against 15.
You are now vice chair of the Restart. I very much disagree with you, but as vice chair of Restart,
I mean, look, it's interesting. I think, I think you articulated it, Tommy, really interesting. And actually, Alex Penaud, our erstwhile presenter, he's sadly not here this week. That's why I'm at the reins. Actually agrees with you. I think, unfortunately, rugby's not in a position to have games ruined. So I was a big advocate of that. I
love the idea of rugby league on report.
Yeah. Like I agreed for an orange card. I thought that's the best way of handling it at the moment, because I don't see the fact that the players aren't learning quick enough. The mitigation is often, I saw George North get sparked out, against Scotland or wasn't taken off. He dipped into a tackle, and the guy was a bit reckless, but ultimately there's not much you could do about that. That was a proper rugby collision in my opinion. Yeah. So look, I pretty much feel like you do, that they shouldn't ruin it. I think he should be cited. The issue for me around
that is the problem, though, is there are so many grey areas in the fact that on that George North one, I don't think it's a yellow card for George Turner.
I don't. I agree. I agree with that.
But then Antonio, I still think Antonio hits the ball, but it's the position. What brings it into discussion mode is the position of his actually arm that he hits with isn't in a wrapping position. It ends up in a wrapping position, but it's not when it goes there. And so this is the problem. There are so many split second.
But also, he should know better, because the height he arrives, it was never going to end well, and that for me is the issue. And that's why I think I agree with you, Tommy. You've got repeat offenders. You've got to look into it. I think an orange card is the only way to manage it, because I don't see people learning quick enough, and I don't think things happening fast enough.
There was if you break it down on a fairway, there was no if he'd have gone at his waist, he would have cut him in two.
That's what I mean.
It would have been as equally as effective anyway.
But lads, the thing is, 4 weeks. If he gets 4 weeks, it's not like that's just a break during the season. Players would look forward to a 4-week ban because the matches are so thick and fast. It's a chance for them to rest up their bodies, and 4 weeks flies by. So the punishment is not strict enough, in my opinion, particularly for people who have done this a number of times a season. And I think unless the site and commissioners go hard at them with either a big fine so that it hits them in the pocket or a big ban where clubs won't be happy about it, but they'll certainly get the point eventually. If you're missing Antonio if he was getting a couple of red cards and he all of a sudden was told you might miss 6 months if you get another red card, he wouldn't go high again.
No, it's interesting. We've never interviewed anyone that's talked about the
fact of repeated,
repeat defenders, but also the sanctions. We've never talked about it because I always thought it's difficult because when I have been cited myself, I know you said 4 weeks. Potentially now, but I wouldn't want to miss anything. I remember I got cited in when I was playing at the Highlanders for 5 weeks. And that was a short season. There wasn't a lot of rugby. It was a stupid thing for me to do. I still think it's hard, but maybe you're right. Maybe they need to look at it. Maybe that is the way to stop people doing it by making it.
I think there is. I think there's definitely a case there for it, but it's honoured. What I would want is a citing panel that I trust, that's going to make the right decision for the rugby scenario that the red card is in. Because if you look at Xander Fagerson's a couple of seasons ago when he was clearing out a ruck, then I don't think that, in my eyes, that's a completely different thing for someone who is repeatedly hitting at a borderline level that's going to leave him in trouble. And my issue is, do I trust the people in the citing commission to make those calls? I'm not entirely sure.
Listen, the way I saw it in the Autumn Internationals, Joey Carberry, who was the Irish number 2 behind Johnny Sexton, had a rare opportunity to start for Ireland against Fiji. He was going well. Fiji were throwing in yellow card tackles all over the place. And Joey Carberry got hit high. Tuisa got a red card. Joey Carberry now has dropped from second choice to fourth choice. He potentially might not go to the World Cup. Not his fault, but because he was hit illegally. And Tuisa, he got red carded, but he got a 4-week ban. What? 4 weeks is not enough, in my opinion, whenever you see someone like Joey Carberry could miss out a massive amount of his career because of a reckless challenge.
Look, I think it's definitely something for people to debate on our social media. No doubt people will have an opinion. I think I have the same concerns as Tinds. You've got to do it with a case-by-case basis. It can't be a blanket rule. You've got to have confidence that people can discern between an Antonio thing, which is just probably stupid. Like, there's no way you should be tackling that high anyway, versus a stupid clear out versus a George North bloke's dipping. So we'll wait to see. But it's good that it's nice that you've come on and had a pretty vehement opinion, because I think it's going to create a lot of debate, and actually it's made me think a little bit more about it. You mentioned Johnny Sexton there. When we saw the anthems on the weekend, Peter O'Mahony was standing there absolutely belting the anthems out. Johnny Sexton was standing next to him. You've played with him a number of times. He wasn't singing, looked very emotional. Obviously, he's such a driving force behind this Irish side. But is he feeling his mortality a little bit? Is he more emotional because he's that desperate to get this team going forward? What would you read into that?
Listen, I think he knows that it's, the countdown is on as well. This is his last Six Nations. He's openly said it. Last weekend, he was very nervous, very emotional before the Welsh match, because he knew this was probably going to be the last time I will ever play in the Principality Stadium. And again, it happened at the weekend. From what I gather, during the week, Andy Farrell got in Brian O'Driscoll, Craig Doyle, who you both know well, and also a guy called David Irwin, who would have been the Ulster team doctor. But he was part of a documentary that Drico and Craig did about the shoulder-to-shoulder, the anthem, and actually the history between the players come from Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And actually back, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, David Irwin was playing for Ireland, and he was involved in a bomb that went off on the border while he was heading across to Ireland training. And he spoke just about how proud, even though he was from Northern Ireland and he saw himself as Northern Irish, how proud he was to represent Ireland, to put on the green jersey. And I think Andy Farrell he's really buying into the players, finding something that is inspiring, and finding them different stories to try and bring out the best in them. And I think, Andy Farrell is a proud Englishman, but I think what is really incredible, what he is doing with the players, he is finding the right strings to pull on them to get to the emotional level that they need to, and not be overawed by being the number one team, by being the favourites going into these, high pressure matches.
Just on Johnny Sexton, do you feel that Ireland are now becoming less reliant on him? If you look, one of the best passes of the day was by Beelum on that inline inside ball on the dummy run around back inside to Keenan. Do you feel that everyone is now picking up the pressure that was on Johnny Sexton to manage a game and push them around? Do you feel that everyone now, with the way they're playing and what you've just talked about with Andy Farrell, that everyone else is catching up to being just as important? I think, for Keenan, is he one of the best fullbacks in the game right now?
Yeah, listen, the work rate of Hugo Keenan, you think of Caelan Doris in the back row, Josh van der Fleer, who's voted World Player of the Year, but I think there's no doubt Johnny Sexton, when Johnny plays, the team play at least an extra 10, if not 20% better. He is absolutely the linchpin in this Irish side. And without him going into a World Cup or going into a big match, you would be fearful. And we weren't really too sure who was going to be the number two. I mentioned Joey Carberry earlier, but Ross Byrne is a guy who's kind of come out of nowhere, but he's always been the number two to Johnny with Leinster. And what he did for Leinster in the European Cup against Racing, he can orchestrate the game very like Johnny. He might be not quite at the same level, but I think that he's able to do the job to a level where the likes of the Ringroses, the Keenans, the Gibson Parks and other players can really step up. Even somebody like Finlay Beelum throwing an inside pass like that. So that's another thing that I've been really impressed over the 2 weeks, is that without Tadhg Furlong, without Robbie Henshaw, without Gibson Park, Ireland don't seem to have dropped their standards. That the guys coming in have been able to play at the same sort of level, which is really promising.
I'll tell you what has impressed me is even Conor Murray coming back, because I thought Gibson Park was going to be a big loss in terms of the amount of pace he then has really learned to put on that Irish game. But I think Murray's obviously the quality that he's had for God knows how many years. He's learned of what he needs to do to try and fill those shoes, and he's done that as well. Yeah,
absolutely. A lot of people were calling for Craig Casey, who had been the young recruit behind Conor in Munster, but fair play to Conor. He's really stepped up to the plate. It's because it is all about tempo, and that's what Gibson Park brings. But I loved it on Twitter. Somebody was saying that now we need to give Conor Murray a chance. And I think the man has over 100 caps. It's not like he needs another chance.
And that people is why you don't listen to people on Twitter.
Exactly.
Just with this Ireland team, because there's a couple of things I want to talk about on the French side. Are you surprised with how well they went against the number two side in the world? Because as I said, I was DJing.
You could say arguably it was 1 versus 2. Some people, me included, thought France still sat at
and they said the reason France weren't number one is they played less games. That's what the maths dictated. Were you surprised with just how good Ireland were?
I have to say I was a little bit like that as well. Were we? Absolutely number one team in the world. Last year, the only team that beat Ireland, really, apart from one test against New Zealand, was France. And they, I'm sure, felt that they're still the number one team. But I think just the way Ireland came out of the blocks after 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden Penaud scored that try, for Ireland to come back straight away and to score through James Lowe, which, looking back on it with the TMO, probably shouldn't have been allowed. But they had so many chances where they were held up over the line. And I just think it was such a convincing performance. And one of my big concerns going into the game was the Irish bench. We don't have the same player numbers that they have in England. We don't have the same player numbers that they have in France. So we don't have the same pool. But I think the guys coming off the bench just made such a huge impact. So yeah, I don't think anybody really saw Ireland winning in the way that they did. Everybody thought it was going to be a 1-score match, but I think it was true testament and showed why Ireland at home are really, really dangerous to play against, particularly with England coming down the line.
Is that something still a slight worry, though, in the fact, the likes of Robbie Henshaw, Tadhg Furlong, Gibson Park, Sheehan, Cian Healy are already out. Sexton had a little groin injury. Tab Byrne left the stadium. with a boot on. Obviously, Rob Herring, we've talked about. Is that still a little worry? I know obviously you've got a furlough week. We've got a furlough week. Then you've got Italy. But still, with Scotland, obviously Scotland win one game, they're going to win a Grand Slam. Now they've won two, the world is going to end, and you've got to go up to Murrayfield. So, is there always still that little worry that if you do get those injuries, that it's really going to mess things up for you?
The Scottish All Blacks, they're on fire at the moment. Yes, but of course, if you just mentioned some of the top players within the Irish team could be missing over the next couple of weeks, but you got to think the same about Scotland. I mean, if they were to be missing Finn Russell, if they're missing Stuart Hogg, if they're missing Van der Merwe, would they be the same team? Probably not. But from an Irish point of view, that's what's been really exciting, is the fact that Ireland haven't had Gibson Park, they haven't had Tadhg Furlong. And they've been able to perform on that level and be able to take on a French team that really weren't missing any players. So things are looking really promising at the minute. It's still very early days. It's 2 matches in, but you know yourself, the Six Nations is all about momentum, and 2 really impressive performances so far. You have to go away from home to Italy, which is always a difficult one. And then, the big one is going to be Scotland away from home. They're going to be licking their lips about that one. And on St. Patrick's Day, then you have England in Dublin. It's
coming
really
to do
teed up.
the thing that you always do to us: spoil a party. Spoil a party.
No, you can't do that on Paddy's Day.
Well, we can and we will.
Well, you'll have trounced us at Cheltenham Festival that week, so we'll have to try.
True.
You'll have already done the thing.
You touched on Penaud's try. I mean, from a winger yourself, just how magical was that moment?
Penaud?
Penaud. I drink both. I like both. I take both of them. I take them both. Don't worry about it. One before the other, not a problem.
Same time.
Yeah, same time sometimes. Well, how good a try was that? I mean, from your perspective as a winger, it reminded me of a young Tommy Bowe.
He's a class act. That guy is just. I got asked before the competition if I could pick one player to be in my team or have in my fantasy Six Nations team. Penaud was the guy I would pick. He's just. He doesn't look like he's going fast, but just the little dinks through he does, the finishing ability he has. He's a real class operator. He's a player like that. There's always a few wingers that whenever they get their hands on the ball, that you can see the crowd kind of go up on their feet. And the likes of him, the likes of Van der Merwe with Scotland is another one who's just playing out of his skin at the minute too. But that Penaud try was something special. There
was another very special moment from France. I mean, can you just give me your view on the Dupont tackle? Because, honest to God, I knew he was a superhero, right? We know he's a GQ cover model. He's an absolute machine. He is, probably the best player in the world right now. But that tackle, I mean, I just can't get my head round through the physics of it.
It's insane, isn't it? I mean, poor old Mac Hansen, he was sure he was over. And I don't know how Dupont did it. I mean, all physics were going against him in that one, but it just shows what determination does. Fair play to him, because you have to be 100% committed to do that. And you can see why he's so influential. He's just such an incredible attacker with the ball in hand, but to be able to pull off tackles like that, it makes me think, wasn't it Will Carling did that to someone like Phil de Glanville back in the day?
Yeah, they held him up, didn't they? They held him up over the line or whatever. And
I love that clip.
Just sort of wrapping it up, it's like, how excited are you about Northern Hemisphere rugby right now in terms of how the quality of the Six Nations, the first 2 weekends have gone? The fact, you could play that Ireland-France game again and not be confident it'll always be the same result. Does that sort of is that sort of competition elevating us to why we've got the top 2 teams in the world and possibly, and another couple of teams who could beat anyone on their day at the same time?
Yes, it's really exciting from a Northern Hemisphere point of view, but you can't hide away from the fact that rugby is in a tricky old position at the minute before going into the World Cup. There's things happening in all the countries on the pitch and off the pitch. And I think the Six Nations was badly needed to try and remind people why rugby is such a special sport, why so many people turn up every weekend and enjoy it. And as a spectacle, I think the Six Nations is as good a tournament, not just rugby. I think sporting wise, the competitiveness with 6 countries, year on year, you never know who's going to win. I just think it's an amazing tournament. And The fact that Ireland are going well at the minute, the fact that France are going well at the minute, I think that, there could be 3, maybe 4 Northern Hemisphere teams go really well in the World Cup in September. And I think it's a really strong position to be in. But you just never know. And I think that come September, the Southern Hemisphere teams will have that block of maybe 10, 12 weeks together. They'll always come out strong. It always seems to suit them more. But I think at the moment, with it being in France, it's really promising, really exciting.
Tom, before we let you go and get some more beauty sleep, we just want to talk a little bit about Scotland. You've called them the Scottish All Blacks. I mean, I didn't see it coming. I knew Scotland are a quality outfit. We've talked about the fact they've now got players across the board. But to beat Wales, 35 points to 7, is it going to be between Ireland and Scotland for the Grand Slam? Do you see that game as the final decider?
Listen, I think that Scotland have to go to France as well. I think that's going to be a pretty tricky one for them. You wonder what Warren Gatland is thinking at the minute. He made this big hero's comeback.
Has he got a receipt?
If he could be Homer Simpson, he'd be disappearing into a hedge right now, I think. But
does he have any more team players that he can bring in again? I'd say he's wondering, what the hell am I going to do here? But to be fair to Wales, they had so many opportunities against Ireland. They squandered a couple of them. Ireland were so comfortably ahead at that stage, I don't think they were too worried. But even in the first half against Scotland, Wales were all over them. They just could not score. And then Scotland came out in the second half possessed and really did show when Finn Russell is on, man, he is a joy to watch. The problem is for Scotland and for Gregor Townsend, imagine how scary it is for him going to bed every night before a test match wondering, oh, please, what Finn Russell is going to be there tomorrow, because he has to put all his eggs in that basket. And at the minute, Finn Russell is really, he's playing out of his skin, but can he keep it going?
One thing he does have to worry about is it doesn't really matter what happens to Finn Russell on the pitch. He could still flip it back into being the best Finn Russell, because first half he gave a lot of ball away to Wales, as you say, and Wales have a big problem in looking at how clinical they are in that final third, because they can't keep going into 22s and not coming out with points. But then for every young aspiring 10, Finn Russell is who you want to watch, right? When the little pump fakes, the little subtleties he does where he's dummying to kick before he drops a perfect pass in, or the long pass that he perfectly times over the top. It's all about deception, whether he looks there, and it's not easy to do, is it? And how much credit do you have to give him for the ability also to play at that calmness where he can make mistakes and it just doesn't affect him?
It's class. Listen, and it's brilliant for the game of rugby, particularly with the likes of the Netflix documentary. Like you mentioned earlier on about me and my 10 siblings blunder. That was an 8-minute interview, but that clip is only 10 seconds long. That's the way media is going nowadays. And for Finn Russell, it's all about those little clips. Young kids watching him doing those passes, watching him, grubbing it through for himself. And that's the way rugby has to go. We have to really capitalise on the class acts, the magicians who get kids into the game and want to have a Scotland jersey with Russell on the back of it. Who really wants a Scotland jersey? But you know what I mean? So
be careful, they'll come for you.
Yeah.
They know I'm only messing. A Bath jersey.
That's what I always said when I used to give Ireland some banter, and now I have to live it down every day on social media. All I'm hoping with Finn Russell is he doesn't really get into the habit of doing his gnarly sign all the time to every camera and sticking his tongue out, which seems to be one of his favourite celebrations after the game.
That's what Ronaldo does, his big celebration. We kind of need to get a few more characters into the game, I think, to really bring it to that younger audience.
I'm actually all right, because you know what? Tinds and I are going to be a cut of old curmudgeons then, because we actually say all about characters, and the first time someone does something a bit crazy, we're like, stop him doing it, it's ruining the game.
I prefer to do something slightly crazier than that.
Just carry on. Yeah, but the thing is, the only problem is doing that, it's like that's reserved for sort of Australians / surfers. I know Finn Russell's sort of an out there character, so listen, if he wants to do it, let him.
But he's not got the beach rig to do it.
He
so
has
he's never going to be a surfer.
To be fair, for a man with absolute spaghetti arms, he's got some pretty good power in that, in those offloading ability.
Australians surfers are halftime entertainers, DJs. I can see
no. I do the flick of the wrist like that. Yeah. That's my flick. Yeah, but with my gammy fingers, it does look a bit like that. But look, everyone be their own. Look, mate, Tommy, you've been utterly brilliant, mate, to have you on, and it's so nice to see you doing so well. Will you come back and join us again?
Absolutely, lads. Love to join you. Absolutely. Enjoy the crack.
And if people want to find out where you are and what you're doing, what's your Instagram so everyone can get on board?
I thought you were going to ask about the cell. It looks like.
Yeah.
No,
When you move out of Borstal.
Yeah. Just find me at Tommy Bowe, BOWE. There you go.
It does look a bit like a proof of life video. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just hold up a little sign with like today's newspaper on it. You okay? Tommy, blink twice if you need us to come rescue you.
Okay, yeah.
Are you haven't
I was hoping you were going to interview me earlier, and I could have done it from the studio. It would have looked a lot more impressive, but you got me just after the nap instead.
We couldn't get the staff, mate. I'm going to have a word with the producer because that would have been way better than the crap we've had to put up with now. But anyway, listen, mate, look after yourself, Tommy. You're a brilliant man, and we'll catch you soon.
You.
Cheers, lads. All the best.
Well, Tommy Bowe, utterly brilliant, Tinds. Great to have him on, and he's doing so well. Just one thing we didn't really get to touch on with him too much was the Wales side of it. Obviously, we joked about Gatland, but what is it Wales need to do? Because for that first half, they were actually better than Scotland in all the stats.
Yeah, and still overall they beat them. They had better territory. They were 50-50 on possession through the game, but made a lot of attacking meters. They just at the moment they just can't finish things off. And I think Ken Owens hit it quite well on the head afterwards in his interview. It's like rugby's easy when your confidence is through the roof, and that was always our worry coming in with everything that was going on behind the scenes as well, and the pressure of then to Gatland coming in to then turn everything around. And I think there's been some great players that have stuck out. Jack Morgan, I think, has stood up. Ken Owens is just like been fantastic as a captain, and what he's doing at hooker. And I know they didn't have a great line out in the first game, but what he's doing around the park defensively and carrying the ball. Yeah, there's been some great young players who I haven't really heard of. I did say leading up into this that they might have to turn to Christ, and Christ Chunza, he came in and played a fantastic. He's been playing fantastic. So there are positives.
So he's the other son of God.
I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
But there are positive signs there. I think Rio Dyer on the wing, things didn't quite fall for him on the weekend, but the weekend before he was fantastic, but he dropped that ball that could have scored. So they have been there, but 35-7 looks ugly, backing up what we said looked ugly as well from the Ireland game, because we didn't think they were that bad against Ireland. They just didn't finish enough. So they've got to start converting some of their opportunities, and if they can do that, then maybe that'll turn their fortunes around. But
is it just a matter of clicking? Do you think
it is just that? But it's in that final third. I think they do it. They're doing things all right around the field, but it's a deep hole that they're in now. When you think you've shelled 70 points in 2 games, and you scored 15 or whatever it is. So it it's not a great position for them, but they've got to hold on to that hope, because if you don't, what can you do? I mean, the skill set now is to probably have a good little, what we would do, a good little smash up, and then go, right, we've just got to go hit it hard on the weekend, but we're going to take all the pressure off or something.
Listen, we're going to go back to our partners this week, the incredible Domino's, the best pizza makers in the world. Now it's time for our Dough Baller of the week, where we want to pick our standout performers from the weekend's rugby.
Doing this together?
Well, I think we like to do everything together.
Have you picked one? Am I picked one?
No, well, I mean, look, I'm going to put it out there straight away, and I think I'm happy to debate it, and Domino's would want that, because they don't want us to hand out their incredible pizzas willy-nilly. Antoine Dupont, the tackle that was seen around the world, / most of Europe, I don't understand how he did it. Max, it's harder for Mac not to score than it is for him, to score. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was always over the line, almost over the line. There's no way Antoine Dupont, who's smaller, can hold him up. Yet he does it and absolutely man shames him and pulls him over, and it's incredible.
I agree with you, but I think because he's done stuff like this before. He has got farmer strength or something for a way beyond his stature. I would say that was brilliant, but I think Damien Penaud's try was a thing of beauty. The way that he sort of got it 10 metres from his own line, beat God knows how many people, got almost knocked off his feet, but then managed to get back into it to get the ball back, and then did something I never did, threw like 4 jinks in, and somehow managed to then smoke people on the outside and score it. Well, so because for somehow you seem to have taken what you would call the hosting role in this show, I will let you make the decision.
Well, that's very kind of you, Mike, and you're very much correct. I am the host, the main man, the number one, the general, the
it's
chairman,
arguable.
the ambassador, the leader, the shining light, the inspiration.
The pain in the ass.
Well, no.
The problem, the legal
The problem. I am a
instigator,
problem. Get too many viewers. I'm going to go with your Penaud. You can have it. You can win it.
Is that because you want Penaud and Penaud at the same time?
Yeah, I would, yeah. And listen, I don't think Antoine Dupont eats pizza. And I don't think, I've never seen him smile. He won't refuse to follow me back on Instagram. And I'm that shallow. And I think that Penaud looks like the kind of bloke who will have a bit of pizza and will enjoy it. So Domino's will send a dough baller of the week to him, his voucher for
there you go.
£50 of pizza.
I think last time we were in Paris, we did attack a Domino's pizza.
We did attack a Domino's pizza. It was very delightful. Well, keep an eye out for the Good, the Bad, Rugby sliding into your DMs. Penaud, sir. And it's not just a weird thing. It's not like an ad campaign. It's not like, we're trying to hustle you, take your bank details. We're actually trying to give you pizza. I don't know if anyone in the business or operation can speak French. I don't know what the French for is. Would you like a Domino's pizza, sir? Well, listen, there's our dough baller of the week. Because you didn't like the sound of us enjoying our pizzas while we were doing the show, we're going to have some after. But luckily for you, lovely Domino's are offering the price slice deal, Mike.
I love the way you had to slow that down. So
of course I did. Price
stuck in the way.
Slice deal. £8 for a small, £10 for a medium, £12 for a large. I'm large and I charge slightly more than that, but you get the idea. If you haven't seen us doing our best pizza making, head over to our social media channels now and watch an incredible video where I would say our acting has peaked.
It was. I think it was fantastic.
Your footwork and putting that pizza in the oven was...
I've never felt like more of an idiot trying to dance around a pizza oven, trying to make it look like mimicking rugby in any way, shape or form.
You've seen that Alex has also tried to up his game now because I think he was feeling a little bit left out.
I know, I did enjoy the fact that he thought he was there for his own little shoot.
Yeah.
It was lovely. Also, round 3, we've got a fallow week first, but then after that, we've obviously got Italy versus Ireland on Saturday the 25th. That's a 2:15 kickoff. Wales versus England even on Saturday also at 4:45. You'll be there? We're there
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to stay for the game.
ERT.
Yeah,
maybe not.
England Rugby travel there Friday night. I don't know if I'll stay down for the game. No one's offering to pay me to be there, so pretty much
not even the green room. They've even had enough for you. I'll be there in the green room anyway. And then on Sunday, we've got France versus Scotland at 3 o'clock kickoff. We'll obviously have Mike's Mystic predictions, which aren't going particularly as I want at the moment. Only 2 from 3 on both weekends, and getting both the big games wrong. So I will try and up my game and I'll look better. Please be nice. I'm just trying my best and everyone is always having a go. That's fine. Mainly Irish, because I did pick France. There you go. And make sure you don't miss the Good, the Scaz, the Rugby this week in partnership with our friends at Vodafone. The episode is out on Thursday with Holly Davidson, Scottish referee who is doing fantastically well on the field at the moment.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. I know some of you will have missed Alex. We haven't really. I think things have been quite smooth.
I'm just... I'm imagining him now after we've done the lock-in that he's sat at home with a prosthetic boob.
Yeah.
Well,
funny you should talk about that. I mean, a lot of people might not know what Tinds is talking about, but please make sure you do subscribe to GBR Lock-In. It is a extra show that you subscribe for through Apple. It's not the main show. Don't panic. You get this free, but you have to pay for the lock-in. It's definitely worth it.
For the super fans, really.
It is for the super fans. We talk about... Alex in Bitty rehab. We talk about parenthood. We talk about me DJing at Twickenham. We talk about
David Coulthard and
David Coulthard's helmet. There is so much to listen to, and I promise you won't regret it. GBR is produced by Ant D'Angelo and Shira Kilgallen. GBR is a folding pocket production.